overall is the biggest issue facing this country. If you ask the Secretary of Defense what keeps him awake at night, Secretary Gates was asked that, and people thought he'd say, well, Iran or Al-Qaeda out there. He said the national debt. He said because that will impact our ability to project force in the future. We have to get our debt under control. My worry is that while Congress tends to take action that we have to take when we're staring over the fiscal cliff into the abyss, that's when we seem to develop the courage that would maybe even put our own careers on the line. The problem is, I don't think we know where that next cliff is. We're kind of stumbling around in the dark here, and that next cliff could happen when we have a treasury auction and we have no buyers for our debt. When China says, sorry, we've got enough. And then what do? Then we have a real problem. So there are a couple of things that have to be done. Get our fiscal situation in order, and part of getting our fiscal situation in order is repealing Obamacare. Right. Yes. We you can put everything aside, like the iPad and all the horrible elements in this legislation that centralizes authority and funding within the federal government, and just look at what it will do to Arizona and other states in 2014 when it starts to be fully implemented. There is no way Arizona can afford that. If you think our budget problems are severe now, or were last year, wait till 2014. The only silver lining is Arizona's not alone in that. Virtually every state is going to be in that position. There is no way we can afford Obamacare, and we've got to get rid of it. In the House, we voted to repeal it. Obviously, the Senate isn't going along with it, which brings me to the second point. In 2006, the Democrats had a very good year. They took control of both the House and the Senate. 4 years later, they lost the House, gratefully, but the Senate only has elections every 6 years. And so, having had a very good year in 2006, it means the Democrats have a lot of seats to defend in 2012. Of the 33 Senate seats that are open, 23 are going to be defended by Democrats. And so that offers a lot of opportunities for Republicans to pick up seats. If we can hold all of the Republican seats Republican, like this seat, Senator Kyle's seat in Arizona, and pick up just 4 seats around the country of the remaining 23, then we can take over the Senate. And whether we have the White House or not, and we need it, believe me, whether we have it or not, we've got to have the Senate. Because it's not only the uncertainty on tax policy that's killing job creation, it's the certainty of regulation. And all of you who run small businesses or large understand that better than anybody. When I travel around the state and talk to business people, they say, uncertainty on taxes, healthcare expenses are keeping me from expanding, but more than anything, it's wondering which federal agency is going to show up to regulate me out of business tomorrow. Whether it's the EPA, whether it's financial regulation under Dodd-Frank, whether it's labor regulations with the NLRB, that don't seem to like right-to-work states very much here, or any other type of regulation that is just coming in droves. We've got to stop that, and the only way to do that is take control of the Senate. So for all of you who are helping in this race or other races around the country, and I know a lot of you are, thank you for doing that. We desperately need to have a Republican Senate. So with that, I know that Q&A time is the best, and I would enjoy a lot of softball questions if you would go ahead, or any of them. But let me just say again, thank you for all you do. I know that a lot of you are involved in other political offices, or helping other candidates, or helping causes, conservative causes, and I just want to say thank you. And a lot of you are involved in various tea parties around and other conservative organizations. Thanks for what you're doing, and the fact that you're here in the middle of a day on a Thursday is great. Thank you for what you're doing. Let's go ahead and start.
What is your view on this latest thing that they're trying to do against the internet, against new privacy?
Thank you. The question is, what do I think about the latest thing they're trying to do with the internet? It's called SOPA, the Software Piracy Act. They're trying to get rid of software piracy. Software piracy and internet piracy is a big issue. And it is impacting the ability of a lot of companies to compete with intellectual property. A lot of, Hollywood, big business for the U.S. A lot of these movies that go out are stolen immediately and put out either for free or somebody else is getting the revenue. Sometimes it's with offshore sites. So it is a big problem, and it's not just that. It's fake products being sold as if they were real, from dog food to machinery, whatever else. So it is a problem. Having said that, SOPA, or PIPA in the Senate, SOPA in the House, is not the answer. That is not the answer, because there is the potential there for the Department of Justice to actually bring action against firms, third-party firms, who happen to have content that they don't know is intellectual property or protected, and it will, I think, create a huge chill over the internet and commerce and content and everything else. And so I am not in favor of SOPA. I think that after the response that they've received from a lot of you and others around the country, those who have fashioned that legislation are going back to the drawing board. As you know, yesterday Wikipedia went dark.
Yep.
I don't know how my kids are going to do their school reports now. I'm worried about that myself. Google put a banner up. Google has actually threatened on their main search page to list the names of members of Congress who support SOPA or PIPA. And I can tell you, you don't want to be on that list. I mean, I'm opposed to SOPA, and we still got a lot of calls yesterday. And so, gratefully, people are, and that's the wonderful thing about the internet, is as members of Congress can't hide. You can't hide votes that you've taken. You can't hide positions you've taken. Everything's out there, and that is a wonderful thing. And we shouldn't do anything that would diminish that. So, thank you for the question. Yes, right here.
Keep the country safe. The American defense establishment needs two things: weapons and equipment on the one hand, and strong personnel policies to take care of the people who serve. Facing austere military budget limits, what should be our priorities regarding things like TRICARE and revisions to the military retirement system?
Thank you. We obviously, in an austere budget environment, every part of government, whether it's defense, whether it's entitlements, is going to be touched. And with defense, we have already announced and are implementing severe cuts over the next 10 years. The problem with what some are advocating, particularly on the left, are cuts far beyond what is prudent. And that's both for weapon systems and troop levels and the care of veterans who are returning or have returned from the field of battle. So my own position is I am a Reagan Republican in terms of peace through strength. And we ought to have that. And we ought to carefully evaluate our commitments overseas. In Afghanistan, I happen to think that we should have a counterterrorism policy as opposed to a counterinsurgency policy there. I think we could do that with a far smaller footprint than we have in Afghanistan at present, and be far more effective over the long term. So we need to be carefully look at what engagements we get in. But by golly, if somebody is sent by the United States to fight a war in Afghanistan or Iraq and comes back disabled or not well, we need to take care of them. That's a commitment that we should make, have made, and continue to keep. So my own view is, while there's no area of government that won't be touched, we've got to be extremely careful that we still have a viable, vibrant defense, and that we take care of those who have served. Yes?
You are a hero of mine for what you've done on earmarks. The big question is the bankrupting debt. I'm convinced by now that nothing short of a no vote on raising the debt ceiling is the only thing that's going to save the country. As you pointed out, the shenanigans from last summer. Anytime a politician runs for Congress and says, no, we can't vote not to raise the debt ceiling without something in exchange, it just puts it off. And I'm looking for a senator who's willing to risk their personal political career to save the country from bankruptcy. I vote to raise the debt ceiling. Did I get that correct?
No, what I said is I would raise the debt ceiling if we put in put in place a plan, like you say, to deal with it. So back in November, or I'm sorry, back in August, when we were dealing with it, Republicans had something called cut, cap, and balance, where significant cuts to the short term, and that's how you can judge any budget in Washington. Anybody who's followed this knows that you can judge how serious we are by how much we cut in the current year. Because you've seen too many Congresses say, we'll cut, but next year, or the next year, or 10 years from now. And so cut, cap, and balance. The second part, balance, is that you have some kind of statutory spending caps in place. If you look over the past couple of decades, whenever we have had good fiscal control, and when we balance budgets, partly in the 90s, it's because you had a PAYGO or Graham-Rudman-Hollings or something that forced the federal government, as soon as you hit a certain level, there were sequestrations or cuts automatically that went in place. And then third, the problem with statutory spending caps is after a couple of years, Congress ignores them. Congress makes the rules, it can change the rules. That's why you need a constitutional amendment that says for the long term, Congress won't be able to do that. And so what I said, and my colleagues, if you have cut, cap, and balance, yes, we'll vote to raise the debt ceiling. And we passed a cut, cap, and balance plan, and then we had another one that Speaker Boehner came forward with that had the constitutional amendment saying you cannot raise the debt ceiling until you not just have a vote on the balanced budget amendment, but actually pass it. And we passed that out of the House, which a lot of us conservatives voted for, but they didn't vote for it in the Senate. And so when the Senate bill came back, I and a lot of my colleagues voted against it. And I did the same thing yesterday. I don't think we should raise the debt ceiling until we have a plan in place. And we don't have that plan in place now.
We can't count on Republicans or Democrats to act truthfully on this. Paul Gosar, when he needed my vote, pledged to vote no on the debt ceiling, and once he had my vote and got elected, he violated that pledge. And nothing short of a simple no vote on raising the debt ceiling is going to save the country.
I mean, like I say, when you've incurred debt, you're going to need to pay your creditors. But in August, had we all said, no, we're not raising the debt ceiling, then the administration would have had to come back and say, all right, what do you want? And then we could have had cut, cap, and balance. That's my feeling. And so what happened is we sold out, in my view. We passed, we said, all right, we'll have these triggers in place and we'll appoint a special committee to do it. And let me tell you, there were some good people on that special committee. Senator Kyle was on there, Senator Toomey, and others.